Today we're going to be talking about the Pythagorean Theorem. The Pythagorean Theorem is a theorem that helps us find the lengths of sides of a right triangle. Now, this only works in a right triangle, a triangle that has a 90-degree angle. So before we go over what the Pythagorean Theorem is, we're going to go over what the parts of a right triangle are. So the parts that connect to the 90-degree angle are called legs. Okay, so we have a leg right here and a leg right here. Okay, now the side that is across from the 90-degree angle, just like this, is called the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse. All right, and just to think ahead, we always call the hypotenuse C. And the legs are interchangeable. They're either A or B, but they could also be considered A and B. Okay, those are interchangeable, but the hypotenuse is always C in our formula. Okay, speaking of that formula, this is the Pythagorean theorem formula. It's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. But before we talk about what that formula even entails, what on earth is the Pythagorean theorem? Well, the Pythagorean theorem is a rule that helps you find the distance or measure of one side of a right triangle when the two measures are known. All right, and how do we use this lovely formula? It's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Well, we substitute the measures into the Pythagorean theorem and then use algebra to solve the equation. So, let's do an example. We have find the unknown measurement of this particular triangle. So we have a leg that's measurement is 3, another leg that's measurement is 4, and we need to figure out the hypotenuse, or this third side. So what we can actually do is we can plug 3 and 4 in for A and B, and we're trying to find C. So we have to use some algebra to think about this. So we have 3 squared, can't forget about the squared, plus 4 squared equals c squared. We don't know what that is. All right, so 3 squared, which is 3 times 3, is 9. 4 squared, which is 4 times 4, is 16. And that is still equal to c squared. So if we add these two together, we're going to figure out that it's 25 equals c squared. Now we're not done yet. I know it's tempting right now to just stop right here. However, we have this squared here, and that causes us to need to go a step further. So the opposite of squaring a number is finding the square root, which is why we went over square roots in the last video. So we need to find the square root of both sides. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to cancel out both the square root and the squared. For example, if we find the square root of 3 squared, it's going to be 3 because 3 squared is 9 and the square root of 9 is 3. So it cancels itself out. So now we're left with c equals the square root of 25. And we can figure out that the square root of 25 is 5, because 5 times 5 equals 25. So our unknown measurement of our unknown side is 5. All right. So if you want a further breakdown instead of just my mess writing it, here's a really good breakdown of how each part works. Okay. All right, we'll do one more example. So in this example, it says find the unknown measurement. So in this example, we actually know a leg and a hypotenuse. So we know, for example, let's just say an A. So we're going to have 12 squared, but we don't know this other side. So we're going to call that B. So we're going to add B squared, and we're going to equal it to our hypotenuse, which is 15 squared. So we have 144, because 12 squared is 144, plus b squared equals 225. So now we have to think about how we solve equations, So from here, we need to, our goal is to get b squared by itself. So we're going to subtract 144 from both sides, just like we normally would if we were solving, for example, x. So subtract 144 from both sides. What this does is it gets rid of the 144 on this side. We're then left with b squared equals 225 minus 144, which is 81. All right, same sort of idea. We need to get rid of this squared right here. So we're going to square root both sides. Square root both sides, just like an inverse operation. So then b is going to equal the square root of 81, which is 9. All right, so if you have any questions, please let me know. Um, really important to understand how this Pythagorean theorem works and how the inverses of squares are square roots and vice versa. And we'll just go from there and we'll practice this in our next class.